Hey everyone. So this video is going to be about the shadow functions, the eight function model, basically. Um, now, it's going to be specific to the beta quadra because that's what my functions are. But you can take it to your quadra and apply it to your quadra, no problem. It's just I don't have access to your functions, so I don't know how your shadow is going to be, the mechanics of your shadow work. I know the mechanics of my own shadow, and so that's why I'm able to give that forward. So just apply it to your own functions, and then you'll get the answer. And I'm hoping other videos for other quadra might pop up or other explanations. I'm just giving you what I've discovered so far. So I got a notification here. Okay. So the shadow. So shadow functions are not the same as Young's shadow. Okay. They're not. It's not a one-to-one thing. Young spoke of the shadow as a separate entity, separate from functions, something in the psyche. So here, this is from chapter 2 in Aeon. I think it's like the second paragraph. It's when he first mentions the shadow. I think the chapter is called The Shadow even. So to become conscious of your shadow, you have to recognize the dark aspects of your personality as present and real. This is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. Okay? So the shadow is basically something that you're suppressing. A part of your, so this is what I'm writing here. It's we all hide parts of ourselves that will not be accepted by others or that we cannot accept ourselves. So that's what we're suppressing. So integrating the shadow, it's not about using all 8 functions. It's about accepting and owning what we keep repressed. So this is Freud versus Jung. It's like Freud thought the only thing we were repressing, the only thing in the shadow was sexual. And Jung said, no, there's more things than just sexual in the shadow. Right? So we're not going to talk about that shadow. We're going to talk about the other 4 functions and the mechanics of how they work. So in socionics, they talk about the 8 function model. They talk about dimensions, and they have some kind of mechanic going on. Dr. John Beebe from the academic world talks about it in terms of archetypes. Objective personality comes out and says, okay, we're using 4 functions, but we can simulate out the other functions. And then for the longest time, after I figured out cognitive entropy, I kept thinking, I'll get to it, but I kept thinking, no, there's exclusive kinds of information. We can't actually use the shadow. The shadow contradicts who we are, or the shadow functions, at least, like the other 4 functions. And then now, shadow function mechanics, I'm actually agreeing with objective personality here. It is kind of like a simulation. You can simulate it out. So it doesn't really contradict cognitive entropy, but it kind of goes beyond it a little bit. So here, let's talk about what objective personality thinks. Now, I thought for the longest time, this was hard for me to accept. I thought it was kind of wrong. Like it didn't really resonate with me, but I wrote it down here. It's not wrong, but it's not 100% yet. So, okay. So this is from a video they put out saying that to get to your SI, for example, if that's one of your other 4 functions, you need to use SE and NI together, right? That's how you access SI. And I'm just going to say, like, through the process that I figured this out, I got to this. Like I didn't start here. I was trying to go against this and I just sort of came right back here. So again, Dave and Shan, you guys got something. So let's see. So cognitive entropy, basically the introverted and extroverted orientation of a function are mutually exclusive, right? You can't have both. The extroverted information runs counter and disruptive to the introverted information, right? Introverted information is about narrowing down and going deeper and deeper. Extroverted information just blows that up. It's like yin and yang. You can't have both at the same time. Introverted information runs counter and binds and traps the extroverted information. Extroverted information wants to be more free. It doesn't want to narrow down. It doesn't want to limit itself, right? So this is very, this is a very simplified version just to give it over. But like, this is what I was thinking for the longest time is like, yeah, there's a contradiction here. Like these 2 things can't exist at the same time. And I mean, the world is not, we're interpreting the world in terms of information. The world itself isn't, well, that's up for debate too. But anyways, the way we interpret the world is based on our 4 functions, and whatever we're throwing out, whatever we're not interpreting is the other 4 functions. And we're getting rid of that information. In order for us to exist, we have to get rid of the other information, right? And that's the individuation process. And so that's what I was thinking for the longest time. But now I just figured, wait, there is a way to simulate, just like OP was saying, the other functions. And on top of that, the mechanics of it sort of run Similarly to socionics, the way socionics talks about them. And so we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so how do I access TE? That's really what I was thinking about. It's like, okay, I was resonating with TE because I do TE things. So and I broke it up into three things. So I'm responsible for functionality in reality. Yeah, I can make things work in reality. Why not? I do that all the time. It takes a while. It takes a long process. It's like it's a feedback loop. I have to watch and repeat and watch, and it takes a time, but I can do it. T is responsible for functionality for everyone, to make sure it works for everybody. I usually don't care if it works for everybody. I just care if it works for me, right? I don't care if everybody, but yeah, TE is responsible to make sure it works for everybody. Everyone's on the same page. People are in agreement, things like this. So that's another aspect of TE. And TE is responsible to generate solutions, right? TE is just coming up with ideas. And it's like, okay, when I look at my functions, how do I access this? Is automatically, okay, so when I'm doing SETI, I can actually do TE. I can make sure the function works in reality. And this is what Dave and Chan say, responsible for it to work for everybody. Yeah, I've got to do that through my FE, my TI plus FE, right? And then when I'm trying to generate solutions to things, I'm going into my TI-NI. Like this video, for example, is a solution to a problem. And what I'm doing is I went into my TI-NI, and it's a deeper solution. It's a TI-NI solution, but in the moment solutions, coming up with reasons and solutions in the moment, it's just disrespecting the TI-NI a little bit and using those to throw out ideas, right? So does this apply to my other functions? I was thinking, right? So right away, I got to this and I'm like, oh, wait, Dave and Chen were kind of right, but it's not the complete picture. TE is actually three things. And if you look at TE through the animals, it's two things, right? But if you look at it through the shadow, it's three things, right? And if you look at it as your main function, it's one thing. So so every function is like one, there's a one aspect to it, there's a two aspect to it, and now there's a three aspect to it through the shadow, which is interesting. Okay, so how do I process SI? So SI is responsible for functionality in reality, right? It's responsible to make sure that a process works out in reality. And I can access that aspect of SI through my SETI, right? So in all of these situations, right, it's the TI that's the same, and I'm using my other functions to combine with TI to get to TE. So TE is actually an amalgamation of all of these things, right? And so here, the same thing, I'm responsible to make sure the process works in reality. That's what I'm doing with my SETI. I do that sometimes. At work, I have, I'm creating reports and procedures for people to follow. It's a lot of work. I do it in the moment, and I flesh it out completely, and then I have to pass it on to someone and give them like a step-by-step process to follow. Now, do I do that for myself? Not really. Should I? Maybe. I don't know. And even if I do it, I'll forget it the next day and I'll try to break it. I'll find a new thing. So I'm not really doing that, but I can do it, right? And that's how I do it. SI is responsible for clarity of purpose. It's responsible to make. So again, this is probably not 100% accurate, but with my SE and FE together, I can get to the SI of making sure that everyone is on board with the purpose. Like there's some kind of, I don't know. I'm not 100% on this either, because my FE and SE are disconnected, right? So again, you see that I have a lot more access, just like socionics would say. I have a lot more access to TE, like almost full access, because it's always using my TI with my other functions. This one might be a little bit less good than these, but TE is really strong with me. SI, I'm not even here. The definition, I'm kind of weak on it, right? I'm responsible to organize the sensory. Yeah, I can organize the sensory. I'm not responsible for it. It's a drain when I do. It's in the moment. I'm figuring it out new every time. I'm not doing the same, and I know SI as well would get drained by organizing the sensory. But so again, this is where OP comes in and says, yeah, they're right. This aspect is true, but there's two other aspects of SI, right? Now, how do I access NE? Again, I'm not sure about this. NE is kind of a harder function for me, but I'm responsible for seeing alternatives. So NI and SE together, I kind of do that. I can see alternative solutions, but I'm not really looking for alternative, because once I find the one, I want to go there. But I can look for alternatives if I do the NISE over and over again, right? And he's responsible for seeing different perspectives. So Otim helped me with this one because he's using NI. So he's really good at simulating out NE. So this is actually something that, NE is something that he swims in a little bit better, just the way I do with TE. So shout out to Otim. So yeah, responsible for seeing other people's perspectives is what the NIFE does. And I'm a little bit worse at that. And responsible to generate connections, seeing connections between things. Now I do see connections between things. So, I mean, it's just not like I still want everything to be connected in a singular whole and not let them be and just connect them as they are, sort of thing. Sorry, that's very N, but yeah. So again, I'm kind of weak. I'm kind of weak. I'm strong at this. I'm kind of weak at these two because the FE, and then here this one I'm horrible at, but I do have this one. I have the one with TI very strong. So FI is responsible for associating value, right? Value to the physical world, liking things, hating things, right? Things like that. So I kind of do associate value. I got an anecdote on this. Like when I was young, my brother was into Pog. I don't know if you guys know what that is, or like Magic the Gathering, for example, right? It was like considered a nerdy thing. And so I kind of liked it for a little bit, but then I saw that the tribe spectrum, like people didn't value it. And I would never openly, and it sort of devalued it for me. It made it less, I was less into it because the tribe didn't value it, right? And I had and D&D, for example, wasn't very valued with the tribe, but I had a close group of friends that liked D&D. And so for me, I was liking D&D because it was with those friends, for example. So I was associating value to D&D, but in an FE way, so less than an FI way, right? But I can still do it because I have access to those functions. Responsible for character and personal values. This I have character and I have personal values. I have personal truths. I'm developing them a lot. So I do kind of have an FI in this way. This is the one that I am connected to. And it's actually pretty strong. And like this also lines up with socionics. Like, oh, it's pretty strong. I'm just not really aware of it. FI is responsible for personal ideals. This one was really hard for me. Thank you again, Odom. He was telling, so again, why are STPs so idealistic? STPs are kind of like the most idealistic people because we don't have personal ideals. All of our ideals are just global, like they're for the tribe. They're tribe ideals. Like all of my ideals are like things like peace or things like this, like big ideals. Great. I don't have any personal ideals. That's not something that I do. And Odin was saying that he does get personal ideals. It's just seeing the tribe ideals over time ends up having him develop those personal ideals, right? So these are all of the functions that I have access to. So sorry, not sorry. I'm not really going to go into the other quadra here, but just to break it up, it's like this is how I divided the three together, right? So I was talking to someone with NE, Prem, shout out to Prem. He was saying, aren't all of these things the same thing? I don't see how they're different. I'm like, yes, that's right. You have NE. They're all the same thing to you. To me, they're all different because it's my shadow. I have to access them separately. I can't access them all at the same time, right? And so I had to divide it up into three things based on my functions, right? So if you have different functions, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like everyone's going to access it the same way. But if you have different functions, it means you're going to divide it up differently. You're going to divide up the function. So like, let's say this is FI, for example, this whole thing is FI. Well, because of my access, I'm dividing it like this. Someone else might divide it differently because of the way their functions access it. So again, I'm not too sure about it. But anyways, yeah, that's basically my discovery. Feel free to critique it and hate it and thumbs up it or whatever. Enjoy and have a good one.